So obviously this is a conversation that needs more conversation, and of course we do that for you here on Afro Breakfast. My co-host Richard is sitting down with Chriselda Dudumashe, who's a social activist and media personality who's been very outspoken on the issues of gender-based violence, as well as Lieutenant General Bonang Mgwenya, who of course will talk about if women are in fact reporting their cases and how far they get. And we know the issue of secondary victimization, which also needs to be dissected. Unfortunately, this morning we had wanted to have Patrick Shine in studio, but he couldn't make it, although the conversation does continue. Richard?
All right, let's dissect this scourge now with a gender activist, Chriselda Dudumashe, and from the South African police, Bonang Mgwenya. Now, the question I really need to ask is, this issue of gender violence, is it on the rise, or are we just pulling the covers off of something that has always existed as a social problem here in South Africa?
I think you've got it right, Richard, that we're pulling the covers on something that has always existed. But this time around, it's heightened and elevated by the fact that we now have exposure to social media platforms wherein we're able to just talk openly. And unfortunately, at times, in the talking openly, we also get exposed to information that we would not necessarily know how to respond to.
All right. And moving over to our Deputy National Commissioner, Bonang Mgwenya. Now, the stats that I receive are actually scary. I'm looking at the stats according to the South Africa Medical Research Council. It says 3 women are killed by their intimate partners every day. Sure. To that, you say what?
Good morning, Richard, and good morning to the viewers. Richard, as you are aware, last week we had 3 days in Durban as senior women in the South African Police Service, whereby we had intended to say how do we rejuvenate and empower each other, but also how do we respond to the clarion call by the Minister of Police, where he is saying, yes, we've been having crimes against women and children as a priority, but let us take it to another level. And we had to look at the current situation. Indeed, when you reflect at the statistics, when we looked at the statistics, last year we had a high number of crimes against women and children, which has been reported. Hence, we are saying, as women within the South African Police Service, we are going to take it upon our shoulders to ensure that we champion the fight against crimes that are affecting women and children. And amongst others, we are also referring to the gender action in Durban that was held last year, where we came up with a 6-point plan, the 6-point plan, which is intended to sensitize our members that are at the Client Service Center to say, whenever victims of gender-based violence come to the police station, this is the treatment that they should be given. And also to say, we are going to be championing ensuring that there is compliance with relevant prescripts, your Domestic Violence Act and the Child Justice Care Act, towards ensuring that at the end we're able to bring those that are responsible for crimes against women and children to book.
All right. Now, moving back to Chriselda, now we've established that it is a problem.
Yeah.
But what our viewers would really like to know is why? Why would you say this problem is on the rise, and what's affecting the psychology of those that actually commit these type of crimes?
I think, in our response, we focus on what we would regard as easy solutions, where you just say men must just stop, men are trash. But it goes much deeper than meets the eye. When you look at the social structure of Africans, especially South Africans, families were displaced. Men lived alone. Women were left in rural villages to fend for themselves. And family structure was broken. As a result, some went to exile. That when you look at how we're responding now, we're responding as if it's something that we can just simply wish our past did not affect. But our past is partly the causative force on why we see the kind of violence we see perpetrated towards women. So the solution would therefore be that we look at a multi-pronged approach, that it's not just about ousting and calling people out, but rather looking at those who want to be rehabilitated, what is available currently. yes, it's all good and well to identify the ills that are perpetrated by men, but those who have watched their great-grandparents perpetrate violence against women and children, their fathers perpetrate the violence, what do they do now to want to change? What is on offer? What is available to help rehabilitate those who are willing to change?
Correct.
Because, I mean, we can't continue postponing.
Yes.
The time is now, it has to end, and we have to have strong voices, a collective voice of South Africans, both men and women, saying this has to stop, and be conscious in the decision making that this is how we want it to stop. Because, I mean, you and I can sit here and say, but this is atrocious, the statistics are ridiculous, but I don't think there's someone who wakes up in the morning and look forward to beating up another fellow human being and enjoy it.
Right.
It is an imbalance. It is a psychological ill that has to be responded adequately. Because I'm sure you can attest that many of the men who perpetrate violence would come back and say, I don't know why I did it.
Right.
And still say that I love my partner.
Right. Chriselda, I was hoping perhaps you would address the fact that in today's world, women are becoming a lot more independent, a lot more confident. They know where they want to be in terms of their careers. They're making decisions not just for their family, but for themselves. And when you look at their male counterpart, could it be the fact that they're somehow being emasculated? They're not rising up the ranks. You have the unemployment rate, which is through the roof.
Can you imagine, Richard,
could you think that's psychologically affecting the men?
Can you imagine being raised, being told that you are the provider,
Correct.
You are the head, and you then meet a woman who provides for themselves? What then becomes your role? We need to go back and go back and rewrite how we explain and educate about gender and masculinity and sexuality issues. Because when you are raised in an environment that tells you that you are the provider, you are the head, you are the macho in the relationship, and suddenly society challenges you to connect to your emotional being. How do you do that when you are raised by men who are not connected to their emotional self?
Correct. Now, Deputy Commissioner, I'm going to have to put you on the spot, and Chriselda, you can jump in if you would like. This problem in South Africa today, is it across the board, or are we just talking the black community?
The problem it's across the board. It's not about Africans. It's not about colored. It's across the board. The stats will indicate that. But I also want to agree with Chriselda to say this is a societal challenge. Hence, as the police, we are saying. It cannot be the responsibility of the police. We need to hold hands together with civil society, with community members towards fighting the scourge. We are saying from the police side, with the FCS units, the 187 units that are responsible for the investigation of family violence and children cases, we are of the view that we are doing our best, and also with the implementation of the victim-friendly facilities that are there within the police stations, which are intended to ensure that victims of crimes against women and children are getting that privacy whenever they are interviewed, towards ensuring that in the investigation is able to bring them to book. We are saying we are doing well in terms of that, and evident to that, it's your Karabo case where the perpetrator was sentenced to 32 years. We are saying we are doing good in the sense that we have seen 692 life sentences meted in the last financial year. But we feel that when it comes to the preventative measures, a lot need to be done. Hence, we are saying the society.
What's beautiful about the Karabo example is that the community took charge. The community helped to provide evidence that this is what happened. And I guess the justice system has to come on board in helping communities, because it's one thing to say, speak out, and you speak out. I mean, case in point, I assisted a young woman who was beaten up by a boyfriend. There is lack of collaboration as well, and I'm hoping it's something that is going to be corrected as we try and redress some of these ills, in which when you need a protection order, you go to a different office from the police station. And those are some of the systematic challenges that victims of violence have to endure when they go to our police stations. Right. And like you say, that we need to make them even the environment friendlier. Yes. That as you come in, you don't feel like you're being exposed to the violence once more, especially rape victims.
Okay, now I still have a two-pronged question for you. Do you also agree that this is across the board? And secondly, would you also say there are other factors? Because you said it earlier, no one in their right mind will commit these atrocious acts. So what about drugs? What about alcohol?
Those are things that we need to begin to unpack as South Africans. And I just saw a post just yesterday of young girls who were left at a nightclub with a 37,000 bill that they had to pay because they just went with a stranger. Going binge drinking. And these are some of the things that we need to begin to focus on, that how does alcohol abuse, drug addiction, alter the way we make decisions and choices. And over and above, I mean, this is not even only a black issue.
Yes.
Imagine being an Afrikaner who believes that a woman belongs in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant, and suddenly they're part of BEE scoring, and they have exposure to all this power, and you don't know how to deal with that as a man. And I guess the message that goes to men is, you know yourself, you know your circumstances, you know your weaknesses. Seek help, because there's no place in you anymore to use power and force as a form of communicating that you are dissatisfied or you feel wronged. There's no place in society. We do not condone this. We do not, it's not justifiable. You know yourself, therefore seek help when you know that you are not in touch with your emotional self.
Okay.
And Richard, if I were also to come in on the issue of substance abuse, drug abuse, we have seen it. They have got a contributing factor towards such cases. You have got a situation where young women and boys will indulge, and they spend a lot of time in shebeens until very late or early hours of the morning, and they are vulnerable when they leave those places. They are vulnerable. They get raped, they get murdered, etc., etc. Hence, we are saying we are calling upon the communities and civil society to hold hands together. We also calling the regulators of the taverns, etc., etc., to say we need to ensure that the laws are strengthened towards ensuring that we don't have a situation where taverns are opened late. But we also saying, as parents, we have a responsibility to educate our children. But also as police officers, we are saying we are recommitting towards ensuring that the South Africa that we are having, we still want to have a situation where women and children, the vision where women, we're committing to the vision where women and children will be able to walk freely at any time of the evening without fear of them being attacked, murdered, or raped. So we are saying, let us march together. We will be there taking lead in our communities, because we are women in blue. We are in the law enforcement environment, and we are saying a lot of women have borne the brunt of abuse and have been suffering from the oppression of the patriarchal system. And we are saying we are going to be taking lead as law enforcement officers, senior management women, towards ensuring that we enhance the fight against gender-based violence.
And in other words, you are assuring us, and you are assuring the general public there will be a strong repercussion for those who commit violence against women and the vulnerable ones?
Yes, by reason of the authority, we have got the authority that is vested on us, but also we are saying there will be awareness that is going to be created. In this financial year, there will be 20 crime awareness campaigns countrywide, but there will also be 45 crime awareness campaigns at the respective provinces. Amongst those crime awareness campaigns, the gender-based violence will be on top of the agenda. It's going to be on top of the agenda. That's where we are going to be very vocal about these issues. But where there would have been perpetrators who have broken the law, of course, the might of the law, they will have to face it.
Do you think that should be heightened? Do you think there should be a stiffer penalty from what we already have? Do you think that should be escalated?
If that's the feeling of the South Africans, we will not be left behind as law enforcement officers. If it's going to be helping the communities, let it be.
All right.
And I guess an appeal has to also go to society that in redressing this, Richard, we also have to look at how we raise our sons. We also have to look at words that we use either to affirm or demasculate our sons. And this goes to not only mothers who are raising sons, but it also goes to the values that we instill upon our daughters as well. We need to restore the moral fiber of our community. It can be correct that when I walk around as a woman, my body is regarded as a crime scene. But, you know, something must have gone wrong. In whatever informs the individual, especially if it's a male figure, to perpetrate violence towards women and children. And we live in a society right now that it's very difficult to even trust an uncle with a daughter. It cannot be that we continue to allow such. We need to have conversations that are saying all of us together, we are the solution. That it's not going to be selective. There's going to be a march organized for the 1st of August where women are saying enough. But I'm hoping that it's not just going to be women saying enough is enough. Men are going to be part of the solution. That as a society, as South Africans, our voice is going to be loud to say, not in my name and no more.
Okay. Now, Chriselda, our viewers and our audience desperately want your opinion on a controversial incident that happened not too long ago. We're talking about the former Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Dudumashe. Give us your take.
I'm actually glad that you brought this up because, you know, Dudumashe, former Deputy Minister of Higher Education, perpetrated an ill, slapped a woman at a club. And my view in reflecting on that was this is a member of society who's a professional, highly educated, and carrying on as a normal citizen, contributing effectively to the economy of the country. But there's something about him that says, when you wrong me, when I disagree with you, I use violence to respond to you. So the issue that I was raising is, yes, it's all good and well to include the justice system, get him jailed or pay a fine, but he still comes back. Because currently our laws are such that if you can afford the fine, you're going to pay the fine, but you'll come back and do the same act. And what happened? He did the same thing again. So the issue I was raising is let's go to what makes you respond in violence in the first place. Where are you from? Because these are people that we are exposed to. These are people that are brothers, and these are people we know. So when they act in that manner, we need to look at the source, the cause of why they behave in such a manner, as opposed to just, you know, outrightly saying, get the keys, lock them up and throw them away. They still come back to society, not rehabilitated. A person like that, you want to use them to be the voice, as did Patrick Shai, to be the voice, to say that I did not know any better. And now that I know better, this is how I'm going to change my immediate
inspire
environment.
Millions to
Absolutely. We can utilize that. Instead of, you know, taking a person like that and wanting to throw them in the bin, let's use them to change society, to change societal norms. And unfortunately, because the correction was not befitting for a person who committed such an act, he comes back and performs it again.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Ladies, I just want to thank you for your time. We have to continue. This is a discussion that we have to have again in future, but for now, we're out of time. Thank you so much for making yourselves available. All right, moving over, ladies and gentlemen, this is our Afro Breakfast on Afro Worldview. We have more news coming your way after the break. Please stay tuned.